first time moderating a panel, so I'm really excited that Vermont Comic Con gave me this opportunity, and especially with Naomi Grossman. So, as most of you already know from American Horror Story, and you played Piper in
Pepper.
I do apologize. Sorry. But the biggest thing I really wanted to know is, when you first originally got that role, I did hear from some grapevines that you did a lot of research actually for the role to make sure that you were able to do everything. So how was that first originally getting the role? How did you feel going into the makeup and all the research you did for this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a real disorder. In fact, I'm sure if people are watching the news, the Zika virus, it results in microcephalia. Keeping me relevant. Anyway, the point is, it's a real thing, and I have a background in comedy, and so this was my first. I mean, listen, I went to acting school. I know how to do drama, obviously, but this was my first big sort of dramatic gig, and so last thing I wanted to do was come off like I was trying to making fun, and so being authentic to the role and character and playing her in a sensitive way was really obviously very important, because it's kind of like in Tropic Thunder, there's a fine line, So yeah, doing that little dance between going full bore and hitting it just right was very important. So in order to do that, obviously I watched Schlitzie, who's the real life microcephalic star of the 1933 film Freaks. If you guys haven't seen that, if you're horror fans, that's one you gotta see. Although it is kind of scary. But anyway, so I watched that on a loop, basically, all summer long. I know the video store was like, are we ever going to see that again? I said, probably not. I just sort of nailed down his, gestures and walk and talk and all of that. And then, of course, through the course of all that, I was going to these, very extensive makeup tests. Where they would kind of do me, and so it was kind of a nice marriage between the in and out. I'd done so much research in terms of like how to be this little guy, and then of course I created kind of a life for myself, which ironically, it wasn't until 2 seasons later I actually learned the real life, the real backstory. But of course, it was important that I have one, whether or not you ever got to hear it or not. And of course, no one ever has. But it was important that I at least, have one. And it was really like, it was one of those things where I just knew that I knew her so well that once they put that makeup on me, I just kind of went there. I'm sure you probably had that experience maybe when you put on your wig, when you put on your cosplay today, you kind of like just felt more super heroic than you probably were maybe yesterday. That's how it is for me. I know, I'm just a performer, on the Enneagram. So when I put on a wig, I immediately take on an accent and, I'm this other person. And I think, when they shave your head and they give you a fat suit, same kind of thing happens.
How was that when you got the role and going through the makeup of it? A lot of cosplayers now, we go through huge makeup ordeals, but yours must have taken so long to go through. And the fact that you also had the dedication, though, to shave your head and go with... I wear wigs all the time just because I'm like, I don't want to do anything with my hair. So how was it going through that particular type of process to actually not only research it to become her, and you already said you become her more when you are it, but how was that type of process? Just the makeup, the prosthetics, just everything. We actually, if you go to her booth, you've got the pictures there of her in it, and it's phenomenal to see how beautiful she is here, and then she goes and becomes this character, and you're just like, it's 2 totally different people. So how was going into that process, and how long did that actually take? It's
interesting, my callback, really wasn't an acting callback at all. Apparently they had a couple of actresses that they knew could handle the demands of the role, and they had us in for a makeup meeting. And in that meeting, they took a bunch of pictures of us, which they later manipulated to see what we looked like with this makeup on. And it turns out my profile looked best, which is kind of cool because, typically as an actor, I usually am invariably in traffic on the way home from an audition and like beating myself up, like, if only I'd said it that way, or what was I thinking? And really it was one of those things where I couldn't do that because it's like, well, I don't know, they just took a bunch of pictures of me, as if I were at the DMV, and how do you screw that up? I don't know, and you can't. So it was one of those things where I thought, wow, okay.
This was your role?
Yeah, this was my role, for sure. And in fact, I've met since, of course, the makeup people who literally decided it. They were like, this is going to be the best. If you wanted to look like that, I'd give it to her. So that was cool. I want to keep going on that, and then I'm going to answer your question. So then, once I was, of course, cast, that's when then I went in for makeup meetings. That was just the beginning. So I probably had about 6 to 8 or so meetings before I ever went to set. And in those meetings, they were kind of trying to figure her out. And usually, it was a good. I mean, these sessions with the makeup artist took about 6 hours at a time, because they were just trying everything. For a while, I actually had a wig cap. Because they were gonna, give me like a bald cap. And it wasn't decided until later that they actually wanted to shave my head. And normally they need to tell you that beforehand. And so I really kind of took one for the team. I did the casting people like a huge favor. Of course, they were doing me a huge favor, but I did them a favor when, after the fact, I agreed to it. Of course, I had to agree to a little more money, and but yeah, I mean, it ultimately it changed everything. It changed, like, let's say I were a Pantene hair model, that would ruin my Pantene career. Of course, it totally gave me a career, but it obviously put me in a different category as far as an actress. Like, for a long time I played nothing but, lesbians and Nazis and hardcore kind of roles that I'm not, but that's okay. In any case, so yeah, we went through these like long makeup tests, and it was of course decided to shave my head, which actually was kind of not that big of a deal after all, but you don't know that until you've done it. You can actually watch that on YouTube. If you just Google, Naomi Grossman, Pepper, head shave, I'm sure you'll see it. I shot it with my cell phone. And they got me a wig that was pretty much like my hair was prior, which was kind of great because it was like having like a great hair day every day. For the next 9 months, actually. Although it was kind of weird because for Asylum, they actually shaved everything but the little ponytail. And then for Freak Show, I think probably out of courtesy, because Salty actually was just a bald dude with big ears. And so it wasn't really fair that he got to keep his look and I had to totally transform it. So they actually shaved my head completely, which was much less unsightly as far as I'm concerned. And besides, it was Louisiana in July. I mean, I didn't want to put anything on my body I didn't absolutely have to have. Yeah. So, yeah, but it was crazy, during Asylum to, I would go about my life, like, let's face it, I had a day job teaching Spanish on the side. That was my sort of like little actor, keep me from waiting tables job. And I would go there with like a little wig on, and then I'd go to yoga and take my hair off and put on a bandana, because otherwise, like, Why would I have the hairdo? Why? And not only that, but I was trying to keep it all a secret, because you know the show is very secretive. And so, how do I justify this hairdo? You know what I mean? Like, I'd gone through my entire life with this little conservative bob, and then for me to suddenly, like, go full Hare Krishna, it was kind of weird. Yeah. Besides, like I said, it was so not me. Like, if you kind of look at, like, I'm very girly. I love jewelry and flowers and unicorns and, so it was hard for me to rock my little, like, Betsy Johnson dresses with my, like, hardcore, I don't know, punk bun. Yeah. But anyway, it was a long process, the makeup, hair. If you again, that's another thing you can watch, actually. I recommend it on YouTube. They actually did me up at a convention. It was called Monsterpalooza. It's in Burbank, California, where they actually had me up on a stage, and the makeup artists did me up on stage. And then when they were done, they unleashed me into the crowd. And actually the show had only aired once. So at that point, there were obviously hardcore horror fans that were like, whoa, was that thing from Wednesday night? So some people knew. Other people were like, what the hell? There's some mad cosplayer out there. But you can actually watch this on YouTube. Not only the transformation, they've obviously sped it up, because it's a 2.5 to 3 hour process otherwise. But then, Pepper, it's actually right around Halloween, of course, so not only am I Pepper, but also Pepper has a costume too. Pepper's a superhero. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Yes, finally, at last.
I got 2 questions for you. Firstly, how long did the makeup take?
2.5 to 3 hours for the face.
Yes.
I say face because for the episode 1 of Freak Show, we actually had a freak orgy in which you actually see Pepper naked. I know, you'll have to go back. So they actually made me like a prosthetic chest for that, and that took about 6 hours. And that basically, in order to do that, I had to stand in plaster, so basically there's like a bust of me somewhere in Burbank, where of just my chest, and on it they created this prosthetic, which then they would lie on me and glue down. And this thing was not only very heavy, but was really, it literally has like hair, and and not only to make this, you have to imagine there's somebody whose job it is to punch every little hair in. And of course that goes not just for the chest, but also like my face, like those Pepper faces, like the Pepper face consisted of a prosthetic nose, brow, ears, hands, or arms I should say, and of course the fake teeth and the lens. But of those prosthetic pieces, you've got to imagine those were not my eyebrows, but they were, somebody went in and literally sewed just look in the mirror and look at your brows and how many hairs there are, and somebody did one every single time. And that was, you could never recycle those. I would wear them once and they were done. So, my makeup was, they spent more money on makeup than they did me, for sure. You have another question?
Yes. And the second one was that I remember back during the last Comic Con, you were meant to be here.
I was. So, yeah, I was scheduled to be here last year, and then got an invitation to the Emmys. And not just any invitation, FX asked me to come with Freak Show, because we were, of course, nominated like 18 times. Anyway, obviously, that's my job, they're my employer, so, and my first time, what's that?
An offer you can't refuse, to quote Marlon Brando.
That is true. So, no, I needed to be there, and it was like 98 degrees on that red carpet. I mean, it was hell, believe me. I'd much rather have been here in the cool. But no, it was very, very exciting, obviously. I met Lady Gaga. She kissed me on the cheek. You can see it on my Facebook fan page.
Soon after.
Yeah. It was one of those, like, just weird moments where, you know, I mean, it was cool enough just to meet her. But then, you know, she got up and all of a sudden, like, she was wearing such a huge dress. I mean, her dress was like as big as this table. And so it, you know, by virtue of her standing up, it kind of announced to paparazzi and like anyone at the party that like Gaga is here. And that's when she got up and then bam, like every photographer around like was on us. And she's, you know, she's a professional. She knows how to work it. So at that moment, that's when she leaned over and, you know, went to peck me on the cheek. And what do you do when Lady Gaga's kissing you? Like, I had no choice but to just, like, you know, make this ridiculous smile. But, I mean, it's one of those moments where, you know, you can't be like, hey, so in this photo, can you kiss me, you know?
Do my good side.
Yeah, but it was like, right, it's pretty great.
My cousin's a fan of Lady Gaga. A huge fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, who's not? She's pretty badass, yeah.
So with meeting all of the different celebrities and that you have throughout the entirety of the American Horror Story series, what was your best moment and which kind of character, it sounds like Lady Gaga may be part of the winner, but what character in that or actor that you met, you were like, whoa, like almost took your breath away, like I'm actually here, I get to perform with this person, and because I've been to different conventions, we go and we meet the celebrities, and we have those like, oh, I actually yesterday when I went to introduce myself, I had to go, my friend will attest to this, I'm sitting there like, okay, breathe. Did you have actually that kind of moment with any of the actors or actresses, and if so, who was it?
Yeah, I mean, Gaga was one of those things where it was just kind of, because I wasn't working with her, I didn't know that, you know, I mean, I didn't expect, that was sort of just kind of a random like, oh, this is happening. I mean, I should expect it because we're in the same world. In fact, I got there first. What was fun about her was that she, you know, we had the conversation and I asked her, like I said, you know, have you watched all the seasons? And she said yes. Like, so I said, well, I'm Pepper. And she was like, oh my God, big fan. So that's fun when somebody you're a fan of is a fan of you. That's awesome. But I would say, you know, Jessica Lange, probably, of anybody, just because she's a legend.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, King Kong, I mean, she's just one of those Tootsie, hello, like, and besides, she was definitely one of those people on set who, like, the minute, you know, Ms. Lang is coming, it's like, you can hear, like, the room changes, you know, everybody on their CV is like, ooh, Ms. Lang, Ms. Lang, Ms. Lang, you know, and so everybody sort of sits up a little straighter and works a little harder, and, you know, so she's one of those, she's a force, and she makes everybody, you know, do a better job. So I think, you know, and I think she made me do a better job too. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it to Jessica. Yeah.
So, with the fact that you've done so many seasons, you guys have all kind of grown with each other. You guys have come back and grown and have made the series just go from what it was in the beginning to where we're going now. And of course, we got the little teaser trailers, so we don't know where it's actually fully going now. What was some of your best memories that you had that just are sticking with you? And which season was it that you're just like, anytime anybody brings up American Horror Story, it's like, oh, I loved you. It's like, you start just thinking like, oh man, I remember this memory. Yeah. Do you have like one of those memories?
Yes. I mean, people ask me like, which was your favorite season, and I think I would have to say Freak Show, just because my role was so much better, and you know, we were on location, so, and New Orleans is way more interesting in LA, even though I live in LA. So, you know, like living basically in a freak dorm. I mean, it was a hotel, but still, you know, you got Dandy down the hall and Amazon Eve to your right, and you know, that was kind of a unique time. I mean, obviously, Asylum was insane for me because I didn't know what I'd gotten. I'd basically, you know, I got cast in this role, and